Hi there, welcome to a new episode of What Are You Going to Do With That? The podcast of the Minerva Center for the Rule of Law under extreme conditions at the University of Haifa. I am Dani, I'm a PhD candidate, and today I'm chatting with Dr. Hana Saliba Salman. I'm going to introduce her to you right after inviting you to check out our social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. There, you will learn more about our guests and their research. We'd love to get some feedback from you as well, so please like, comment, and share. And now, back to our guest, Dr. Hana Saliba Salman. Hana is originally from Nazareth and started her academic path with a BA in English Language and Literature and Literature and Educational Counseling at the University of Haifa. Upon completion, she continued with an MA in the same field, for which she wrote a thesis on the transformation of the detective genre from positivism to modernism and postmodernism. Hana then moved on to get a teaching certificate in English language for high school education, also at the University of Haifa, but after that went back to English language and literature and pursued a PhD, which she has completed in 2017. Her dissertation focused on detective plots since the 1950s and revealed the systematic decentralization of political power to the social periphery and exclusion of different minorities. A very timely topic, I'd say, especially in light of today's Black Lives Matter demonstrations that we've seen globally. Hana has held academic positions, including adjunct lecturer at the Haifa Center for German and European Studies, as well as the Department of English Language and Literature at the University of Haifa. Currently, Dr. Hana Saliba Salman holds a postdoc position at the Kreitman School for Advanced Graduate Studies at the Ben Gurion University of the Negev in Beersheba. There, she is also an adjunct lecturer at the Department of Foreign Literatures and Linguistics. She also works, actually for a while already, at the Academic Arab College for Education in Israel, located in Haifa. Next to her article publications, Hana managed to land a book contract about her research topic, which I can't wait to hear more about.
Okay.
And then last but not least, Hana won a scholarship for outstanding female Arab researchers from the Otto Werner Scholarship Program, which is part of the German Friends Association and the Jewish Arab Center at the University of Haifa. That's how she became a member of the Jewish Arab Community of Scholars. Hana was an associate researcher at the Jewish Arab Center, where she organized and participated in workshops for the advancements of female Arab scholars in Israeli academia. So, welcome, Hana. I'm glad that you were interested in joining us for an episode on What Are You Going to Do With That? And again, you're a first of a kind for us, because we haven't had a guest from the field of literature yet, and I can't wait to hear more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Before I really get started with some questions, I'm going to pour myself my signature drink, Amaretto. What did you bring with you today?
A rose wine. Okay. Sol Fasol.
Oh, nice. It sounds very summery.
Yeah. And icy.
Yeah, with this weather, that's definitely nice. All right, I got mine ready. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Now I can start with a few short questions. Are you ready?
Ready.
Great. What is the first thing you do in the morning?
The first thing I do in the morning is pray. I'm a devout Christian believer. I rediscovered the presence of God in my world after my friend passed away. May she rest in peace. Her name is Mona. And I think that God's presence in my life gives meaning to what I do. And it really strengthens me spiritually and makes me accept others, accept all the changes that happen in this world with openness and with love.
I'm very sorry to hear about your friend, but I'm glad to hear that something good has come out of it for you and that you found more meaning in it.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing. I hope the next one is then a bit of a less serious question, which is, what's your favorite work at lunch? Do you bring food from home or do you buy something on campus, for example?
No, very often I actually prepare something from home. and I'm a veggie, so I have to prepare in advance for my lunch breaks, and I have to have a lot of fruit. So yeah, I prepare things from home.
I saw that you have cherries with you right now.
I mean, these are the disadvantages of technology. I'd have shared one with you.
Yes, shame, because it's my favorite.
Yeah, nice red cherries.
Okay. What is something that you're looking forward to in the near future? I know it's difficult to plan things these days, but what's on your mind?
Well, I have actually a lot going on in my life recently because, as you've mentioned already, my postdoctoral appointment, started only in March 2020. So I'm launching a new research, but I have also to complete editing my current book. These are the two main things that I'm working on at the moment. And I'm looking forward to finish, or to complete the publication of my book.
All right, hopefully that will go well. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Where would you build your dream house if money wasn't an issue?
Wow, that was a tough question.
Sometimes the short ones are the hardest.
I mean, I think I would certainly love to live in Haifa. Okay, I like everything about it. The fact that it's multicultural. I like the beach, and I would say if I could have, if I could afford it, I would certainly buy a house in Haifa.
Something on top of the mountain with an amazing view.
Yeah, and it's also chilly and nice, even in the hot summer.
Yeah, it's great. Oh, good to hear that you like my hometown. Which detective book should really be made into a movie already?
Oh. I was thinking about the Yiddish Policemen's Union.
Okay.
And I really look forward that it would be turned into a movie. It's by Michael Chabon, and it's about an Alaskan detective who roams the frozen streets of Alaska in order to detect the murder of someone called Emanuel Lasker. And there, of course, he takes us into a journey to his, bringing to light his Yiddish culture.
So we have the background of Alaska, which should already be a good movie then. So this sounds like a good idea. Someone has to pick this up. All right. Thanks for that. I'm now ready to learn more about your academic journey a little bit. So let's start at the beginning. You started a BA in English Literature and Educational Counseling. Was it your original plan to become an English teacher?
I didn't want to become an English teacher, actually. I always, wanted to become a critic. And I was also interested in psychology, so I wanted something that would integrate psychological counseling with a reading of novels and fiction. So this is why I chose my 2 tracks. I joined the Department of English Language and Literature at the University of Haifa and was also a student at the educational department.
All right, and you've actually started being an English teacher from an early stage on, right? Because you've been teaching English at the high school of Terra Santa College in Nazareth for about 10 years in total, almost. Did you enjoy that, though, or why did you then choose to teach anyway, if that was not really your plan?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, first of all, I needed a financial support, and very soon I found that I discovered the teacher in me. So it's not that it was so alien from my nature. And so I also liked to work with teenagers, and I felt that I was easily attached to them, and especially that they come from different parts of the Arab society. They were Muslims and Christians. So I liked really to establish some kind of an understanding of a dialogue between these different groups that are often at tension in Arab towns in Israel.
Okay, so there you go. You had the psychology behind it. You found a teacher in yourself. You managed to combine it with English. Sounds great. So if you were in the right place with teaching at this school, when did you decide to continue with an MA and to write a thesis?
It wasn't a hard. Actually, I did it right afterwards. I mean, upon the completion of my BA, I already had my plans for an MA. I wasn't planning for doing counseling, but I got a scholarship which I turned down. I got a full-time scholarship for an MA in counseling, but I decided that literature is what I want to do. And so I knew it, and I'm convinced, if I would go back, I would do the same thing. I would choose the same track.
So you have to follow your heart in this case, I suppose. It does sound like a good story. Okay, so now you've immediately went on with your MA following the BA, knowing that literature is what you wanted to keep studying.
Yeah.
When did you decide the specific topic? You've been looking into marginalized detective. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about and something about the focus on minorities in literature that you've studied?
Well, my romance with detective fiction goes back and dates back to my second year of studies at the English department, when I've taken a course with my advisor, MA advisor and PhD advisor, Dr. Bennett Kravitz, on detective fiction. And, I was immediately intrigued in the genre, in the intellectual puzzle. And I knew that, if I would do an MA research, it's going to be in this area, in this field of studies. And I actually started doing a generic, my research was on the generic transformation of the detective genre. So it wasn't aimed at the marginalized vantage point. That was later when I completed my MA thesis. I noticed the marginalized twist in detective fiction that came to light since the 1950s. And so I wanted to do that because, I'm also a minority in Israel. And so this is why I wanted to do it.
Can I ask if this study and the supervisor that you chose was already existent at the University of Haifa then, or were you the first one to initiate something like this?
Well, for long, I can tell you that for long, detective fiction has been underestimated. It's considered to be popular culture. And most students, for the sake of their academic career, they would not think of dealing with a popular genre. But I didn't really think about that. I wanted to, I think that they were not doing justice to this long tradition of detectives. And I thought that I'm going to give it its important and its utmost significance.
Okay, sounds like a great mission. And it worked out so far with the dissertation and the upcoming book. Don't you feel like a detective every now and then as a researcher? I definitely do.
Yeah, we are, detectives in the areas that we've studied. And so there is a lot to learn from the fictional detective about our nature and about fiction as well.
Very interesting. Now, while we're talking about minorities, I'd like to know more about the Jewish Arab Center that I've talked about in your introduction. You received a scholarship from them for being an outstanding female Arab researcher. But what does this center do and what does it provide for? Did it also help you to excel as a member of a minority and as a researcher?
I certainly believe it did. I became acquainted with the Jewish Arab Center only after applying for the Werner Otto Scholarship and when I became a member. And then I felt that it's not like any other center, because it was like my home in the university. It provided me with emotional support, not to mention, of course, also the financial support that is always necessary for a student, a young researcher. But it also provided us with the opportunity to voice our research to other, colleagues, to other students, also to more advanced researchers. And so this will certainly help widen your perspective about what's going on in the academia. And I would like also to mention their networking program, which is always worth mentioning. I mean, because they tried to network us with other Arab researchers in the field. And it's always important to look at someone who's ahead of you.
And was that then particularly with someone who was inside of Israel, or was this a global network?
We will basically locals. I mean, the network connects Arab scholars within Israel, scholars that you would not meet elsewhere, because we don't have, a lot of panels or conferences in the Arab sector, especially if we're talking about literature and arts. So that is a very important platform.
Would you recommend any other students currently to apply for scholarship or to become part of this network? And what does it take?
I would certainly do, but you have to be a member of the Werner Otto community in order to be part of this network. But I would certainly recommend other young students at the University of Haifa to apply for the scholarships that are provided by the Jewish Arts Center.
All right, so let's get out there and do that. All right. Following everything you've done in Haifa, just last year you've started a new phase in your academic career. You started a postdoc position and left Haifa for Ben Gurion University in Beersheba. Why don't you tell me a bit about your current research project?
Yeah, first I would like to say a word on my experience at Ben Gurion. I mean, prior to my appointment in March 2020, when COVID-19 was already in act, I was an adjunct lecturer at the English department at Ben Gurion University, and it actually provided me with a wider intellectual landscape. And I was so much interested, and I enjoyed to get in contact with other communities in Israel, like the Bedouin community, and also other students from the center. Now, as for my postdoctoral research, I received the scholarship from the Kreitman School of Advanced Graduate Studies, and it's supervised by Ephraim Zecher. It deals with the meta-narrative of memory conundrum or memory disorders, and especially about its transformation from an escapist mode to bravely encounter it. So it's entitled like this: the meta-narrative of memory conundrum, from escapism to a brave encounter. It talks about the ubiquity of the conceit of memory disorders in multidisciplinary fields, like in film, in literature, in historical studies, and also in theoretical studies. That very often, that this conceit of memory disorder very often parodies, the dynamics of postmodern culture in its splitting of temporality, in the fragmentation of the individual subject, and the effect it has in harming our memories.
Well, it sounds, for someone who's not very familiar with the topic, that movies that have recently come out, such as Inception, or what is that movie with space? What was it called again? With the turning, I have to look it up. I don't remember, but there's this other movie where people go to space and then time doesn't match, things go backwards and forward, and people have a memory of something that maybe wasn't really there. And it sounds very interesting. That's just what I wanted to add.
I'm focused on the publications that have been to light over the last 2 decades. Okay, so yes, you're right. I mean, it's becoming, it's mushrooming over the last 20 years. So no wonder that you are mentioning several films that are becoming popular.
And you're looking at the overlap of literature and movies now?
At the moment, I published an article, trying to look at this, a interchange between memory and culture in Paul Auster's Man in the Dark. And I'm looking at, yes, as you mentioned, the cinematic genre in order to investigate and explore this phenomena further, because I suggest that there is a cultural memory conundrum.
And what does that mean?
I actually tried to explain before that what we experience on a daily basis, being part of different, dimensions, is by nature very fragmenting. It tries to break time linearity. And so this echoes, the state of a memory disorder.
All right. Interesting. When are you supposed to be done with this project at Ben Gurion?
February 2021.
Okay, so you have a bit more time, but not too much. And in the meantime, you're also writing a book, right? Another step in your career is landing a book contract. Do you have a title for the manuscript yet? And when is that due?
So my book manuscript entitled Lone Wolves, Marginalized Detectives in a Postmodern Realm looks at the shifting of political interest from mainstream culture to marginalized subjectivities. In this book, I work on and I focus on 3 subgroups: ethnic, gender, and mentally disordered figures that try to achieve a sense of justice in spite of the intricate realities that they are born into. And very often they fail to establish their sense of what is right and what is wrong and the truth, yet they succeed to discover their inner self. And very often they try to detect the projected other within themselves. And having done that, when it is released, so they succeed to be more liberal and in their views.
Okay. And do you know yet when you're supposed to hand it in or when it's supposed to be published?
I know when I have to hand it in. So it's this September.
This September. Okay, so the date is coming up soon.
Yes.
So how did you manage to get a contract, and what is this experience of writing a book like?
Well, the story behind the contract was no less interesting because I went for an international conference or a regional conference in North Carolina, organized in Wilmington, organized by the Popular Culture Association in the South and the American Culture Association in the South. And there, I gave a paper back then on the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. And I was comparing it to the classical story by Arthur Conan Doyle called Silver Blaze. And there I had the opportunity of meeting one of the editors that work at McFarland and the company, and he was interested in my, back then it was my dissertation. And they say that they also work with publishing dissertations. So that's when I submitted the proposal and it was accepted.
Great. Can I ask how long your dissertation was?
It wasn't that long. It was about 200 pages.
Okay, so you just had to adapt it to a more easily reading book, or did you totally change the product?
Unfortunately, I had to cut half the work because, the company works with either literary genre or cinematic releases. And my study looked at both cinema and fiction. So I had to cut the entire part that deals with cinema.
Okay. And this also explains why you're now in Ben Gurion also looking into movie. At first, I thought it was mostly focused on literature and only books.
Yeah, you're obviously right. I mean, because this is how I became acquainted with the memory conundrum. Some of the detectives I looked at in cinema, like in the film Memento, for example, or Insomnia, they suffered from a mental condition. And the more I searched, the more I found narratives on memory disruption in other genres that are not detective.
All right, cool. And then I've actually already come to our last question, which is, what is your next project? And honestly, what are you going to do with that?
My next project, you mean after I'm done with memory disorders?
Will you ever be done?
Yes. First of all, I intended this proposal on memory disorders to be a full-length monograph. But I was appointed for a postdoc only for 1 year, which means I will not be able to publish, or to finish or to complete a book by that time. And so what I look forward to doing is to continue and to extend my research to include other areas like historical studies that reflect upon memory. Okay, so that there was a historian who suggested that we suffer from a cultural dementia. Okay, there were theories that describe a world and culture as being schizophrenic. So this is, becoming a very ubiquitous conceit that's worth looking into.
Okay, so something you would like to continue with. Would you try and apply for another postdoc position when you're done with this one?
Well, certainly, I would like to, but my experience, in applying for a postdoc has been very challenging. After completing my dissertation in 2017, I applied for many postdocs, and it has taken me a lot of strength, emotional as well as intellectual, to accept the turning downs, when your application is denied. This is also, the opportunity to thank Professor Ephraim Zecher for, his interest in what I do and for offering me this opportunity. But I will certainly try.
I think you should. I've heard this before, that it's very difficult the further you get into academia to actually land the position, especially the one that you really, really wanted. Simply because there's so much competition. And what I've learned from other guests that I've had so far is that you shouldn't take it personally and you got to keep soldiering on. Would you give our listeners some tips on how you managed to soldier on?
Well, yeah, just a word on your remark. I just want to say that it's true that there is a lot of competition going on in getting or earning a postdoctoral position. But it's particularly challenging for a minority individual because you're not connected and because you don't always get the chance to hear about different and various postdocs. And it has taken me a lot of time to learn how to apply for a postdoc, which could have been a time that could have been saved if I had, a person that applied and was accepted. Despite the scarcity of sources, or of resources, I think that it is also doubly hard for someone from the periphery to get and earn a postdoctoral position and an academic position. But I advise young researchers, especially if they are Arabs and especially if they are women or belong to other minority groups, is to keep the faith. Okay, and this is what I also learn from the detectives I do my research on. So despite the conspiracy, that you might feel surrounding you, you have to think about doing the things you believe in, regardless of the consequences.
What do you think, or who do you think, can actually change the way that it is so hard for minorities in Israel to enter academia, also at higher levels? Could it be more of a higher level government who is responsible for this, or should it also be the academic institutions such as the universities?
I think that it will be important to bring this issue to the national level and be discussed at the governmental level. Because I don't think that we have enough a representation for Arab researchers in the Israeli academia, and it's very important because this is an institution for the production of knowledge, and it interferes with how the person perceives the world. And so for the sake of multiculturalism, it should be more equal. And I think that at the same time, universities should also care to make more investments, financial investments, especially in postdoctoral Arab students. Okay, because we have different fundings going on for MA and PhD levels. But the more you delve into the academia, the less chances you have to survive. And so something should be done in that position, okay, or at that level. Like some programs to connect the young researchers with the more global researchers in the field, or to provide professional tools on how to apply for scholarships. So I think that a lot can be done in giving consultation to young researchers.
So there's also definitely a component that can be taken over by institutions like universities.
So I think, even though I'm not a politician, I don't know exactly what should be done for, within that area, but I think that there should be more investments, okay, in Arab researchers, especially if they are women.
All right, let's cheer to more Arab women in Israeli academia. I suppose we could say Saha?
Yeah, Saha.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so the question, what are you going to do with that, is a question that I get a lot. People ask me, why are you doing research in social sciences at all? Do you intend to pursue an academic career, or do you want to go back to being a book critic?
It's not a matter of either or, okay? I don't think that I would put it in this way. I know that I'm interested in doing academic research, and this is what I will continue doing because this is what I can do. And I will try, of course, to also establish an academic career, but this is also not within my reach. I'm trying to apply for different courses to be enrolled at different universities. I get, short-term contracts, and I will continue to aspire for a long-term contract.
All right, I'm wishing you the best of luck with that.
Oh, thank you a lot.
All right, then we've come to a last set of short questions. Okay, so the first short question is, what was the most important conference that you've been to?
Going to conferences has always been, exciting for me. Because I take it as an opportunity for a cultural exchange. Okay, and also to get to know new cultures and meeting people in my field. But as I told you before, that the conference that I attended in Wilmington, I think it was in 2015, that was basically the most important one because it was a turning point in my life. I did not think about writing a book, okay, or turning my dissertation into a book. And, that was an unforgettable opportunity.
It seems like the people that I've been speaking to, at least the researchers, are very split about this question. Some people absolutely hate conferences, and some people really love it.
Yeah.
I like it too, I have to say.
You choose to go to conferences in a place where you're sure gonna meet researchers that you're interested in getting to know, and if you like also the country that you're going to, or you would like to learn about its culture, then that is an advantage.
Exactly, that's how I feel too. All right, you've already mentioned something about having applied for scholarships. Have you received one or more?
I've received the Werner Otto Scholarship when I did my PhD. And recently I received a postdoctoral scholarship at the Kreitman School. And I had also other scholarships or fundings for participation in conferences like the last one I've been to was a symposium in Jordan run by the British Academy, and it was a very, very significant symposium because it was different in its nature, and it has helped me talk about myself, okay, as an Arab Israeli scholar among a group of Arabs that I couldn't meet elsewhere, like those that come from Lebanon or from Syria or from Iraq. And so that was also a good funding and a cultural opportunity for me.
So it was definitely worth going through the trouble of applying for.
Yeah. And also that was the first time for me in Jordan. And so, yes, it was worth it.
Great. What do you consider to be your most important contribution to your field?
I think that one of the major contributions is that I try to show that detective fiction is no less significant than what others would consider elite or upper class fiction. So the popular genre should be more evaluated. And the fact that it offers you the intellectual landscape in order to study and to examine politics of inclusion and exclusion in a society is only a proof of its significance and importance. So looking at the genre from such a sociopolitical perspective, I think is basically what I've added to this field.
A very important contribution.
Thank you.
Who has impressed you most with what they have accomplished?
I was impressed, and I'm still, I'm still am impressed by my MA and PhD advisor, Dr. Bennett Kravitz, because of his viewpoint and his interest in topics that are always debatable and esoteric in nature. And I also, I'm particularly proud of Dr. Bennett that he has written recently a book about his experience with his father, whom he is taking care of at an old age.
And then the last question is, how do you relax after a hard day of work?
Well, I don't often get the chance to relax because when I get back from work, I have to take care of my daughters, and they are very energetic. So my chances of rest are almost dull until I come to my bedtime. But I would say that contemplating over what I did during the day helps me to calm down.
Okay, so you take a moment for yourself to go over what happened that day.
Yeah, I mean, in spite of all the efforts, I check if I managed to make someone smile or to cheer someone up. And this is what really uplifts me.
Okay, sounds very rewarding.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks again, Hana, for joining me today. You really gave me a different perspective of literature studies, and I can't wait to read your book when it's published. I also want to thank our listeners for following us on social media. If you have any questions or comments, find us by searching "What Are You Going to Do With That?" Another episode is coming out next week on Thursday. Actually, I also noticed that we weren't able to talk about the Haifa Center for German and European Studies, where I'm getting my scholarship from, and you've also been affiliated with it, right?
Yeah.
How did you get to the center?
Well, it was, I was so much interested by the programs and the conferences that they held and they posted every once in a while at campus. And this is how I became to know the Haifa Center for German and European Studies. And I remember that once I've been, attending a conference and I had the chance to meet Professor Eli Salzberger, I applied for working at the center and to give a course on feminism. Because it might, it offers an intersection between literature and politics. And this is how I joined the center for one semester.